Hello friends! Today we have a 4-color vehicles deck that plays unlike any other vehicles deck I've played before. It's really interesting. First of all, it's 4 colors, which means the mana base is a little tricky, so you've really got to watch which lands you play and when. It's the most important to get up to 2 white mana, but then you need 1 pip of at least each other color for most of the other cards in your deck for it to work. So you got to be careful with that, first of all. But anyway, how does this deck work? So first of all, you've got Greasefang, one of the new cards from Neon Dynasty. And what Greasefang does is every combat, you get to return a vehicle card from your graveyard directly to the battlefield and give it haste. So, for example, the first turn that Greasefang comes down, you can then immediately animate that artifact, even using Greasefang to crew it up, rather. So you've got the first couple of turns where you're laying down vehicles with the hope of bringing things back with Greasefang. You've got Thirst for Knowledge so that you can draw cards and then maybe discard some extra vehicles so that Greasefang can then reanimate them later. Some early removal with Vanishing Verse and Portable Hole. You've got the Hotshot Mechanic, who is also there to crew up some of your vehicles. But this isn't necessarily like an aggressive deck. It wants to play out some vehicles early so that you're set up for the mid-game when you can hopefully get a lot of value out of reanimating your vehicles. So that's why you'll notice there's 3 Doomskar in the deck. So oftentimes what happens is you'll spend the first few turns setting up with some of your vehicles and removing some of your opponent's key threats, and then just out of nowhere kind of laying out a Doomskar, and suddenly you're left with a board where maybe you've kept a Hotshot Mechanic back in your hand or you've got a Greasefang in your hand, and suddenly your board is already set up to go ahead and take over and then start attacking with the vehicles that are left over and left untouched by the Doomskar. So it's kind of an interesting idea. Again, the mana base is really tricky, so you've got to be careful if you give it a try. But it leads to some really interesting scenarios, and there's lots of options for things that you can do with this deck. So anyway, it looks like fun. We're going to go through some games together, and we'll see you soon. All right, let's take a look at our hand for game 1. Starting off with some early removal and some Reckoner Bankbuster to get some card draw, to fill in the gaps. Noticeably, we don't have anything to crew our vehicles yet. Good draw there with the Hotshot. We're going to go ahead and lay down a pathway and play the mechanic. Most likely set up for a second turn Bankbuster. Start drawing a few cards here. There we go, we've got our second white now, so the Doomskar is online. And the opponent looks like they're going to be playing a more aggressive deck with the green and the red, so we decided to go ahead and foretell the Doomskar here. Alright, they've spent their turn bumping up Ranger class to level 2, so this means that the Wolf token could be a good target for Portable Hole. Play the Shipwreck Marsh here. Get the Bankbuster down. Portable Hole on the Wolf token. Got essentially a time walk out of the opponent there for just the cost of 3 life. Alright, so Kodama of the West Tree. So they're going to try to put counters on their creatures, pull some lands out of their deck using the Kodama's ability. I'm going to get the second Bankbuster down here. Now, since the Kodama is smaller than an animated Bankbuster, we're going to crew that guy up using the mechanic and swing for 4. Now, if the opponent does decide to attack with the Kodama, we've got Valorous Stance. Since it will be a 4 toughness creature, we could use that on the Kodama. Alright, we get rid of the Kodama. Alright, they are really leaning on this landfall theme here with their creatures. We've got a Mech Hangar, which is going to be great if they ever decide to remove some of our crewing creatures. But since their creatures are still pretty small, we're going to go ahead and power up one of the Bankbusters here and use the Mech Hangar to power up the second one. I'm going to swing in for 8. Opponent decides to block with the Cobra. We're feeling pretty decent. We've got a Doomskar back here foretold, and a Surgehacker Mech to remove pretty much any creature the opponent could play at this point. With 3 vehicles on the board, that is 6 damage from the Surgehacker Mech if we decide to play that. Nice little combo with the Kodama and the Fledgling over there to get a counter every time you pull a land out of the deck. Pondering what to do here, so most likely I'm gonna swing in again with the Bankbuster and, sorry, excuse me, both Bankbusters. Contemplating targets for the Surgehacker. We're going to go with the Fledgling here just because it is the thing that could fly over top of us and get out of control. We have our Doomskar for backup, but we're in a pretty decent position, being able to crew up multiple vehicles each turn, so I kind of want to hold on to that for now. All right, Brutal Cathar comes down. It's going to get rid of our Mechanic. Kodama gets in, gets a counter, hits up for 4, and that's going to pull another land out of the opponent's deck. Druid class gives them a life point. We're going to draw with the Bankbuster, a land and a Mechanic. Not too much help, but the Mechanic will let us crew up 1 additional thing. So here's a situation where this deck can get kind of interesting. We've got our vehicles on the board, a Doomskar ready to go that will leave them untouched, and perhaps the ability to crew them up afterwards. Remember to use the Mech Hangar on the thing that takes the most amount of power to crew, and we'll swing in for 9, forcing the block out of the Cathar and getting our own pilot back. Opponent decides to Lotus Cobra. Luminarch Aspirant. It's going to help to modify some additional creatures. Opponent just decides to put the counter on the Aspirant there because the Kodama is going to get the free counter from Ranger class. No blocks here, feeling pretty good. Now on our turn, again, we could play a Doomskar and then crew up one of our vehicles using the Mech Hangar. Got Faithful Mending and Esika's Chariot in hand to help us fuel up later, but we are going to try the board clear and then crew up one of our vehicles approach. Just checking that we do have enough mana to do that. It's 3 mana to activate the Hangar and 3 for this Doomskar. And we'll go ahead and activate the Hangar on our biggest guy with Menace and attack in. On to the next game. All right, on to the next game here. Not a bad opening hand. We've got at least one of each color. Getting a second white will be important later on, but there are enough sources that we can most likely draw into it with the thirst for knowledge. Early Portable Hole and Bankbuster will help us stay alive and refill the hand a little bit. Turn 1, get down the tap land because there are no targets for the hole just yet. Going for double white early on and putting down the Bankbuster. Opponent with a Spirited Companion, so they're probably on green-white enchantments of some variety. We are going to put down the third land and hold for the Thirst for Knowledge here. Opponent with a quick borrowed time to target our Bankbuster. We'll go ahead and draw a card before that goes away. Opponent gets in for one with the doggo. Second blue here to get down Tezzeret since he's pretty safe. And this draw to discard an artifact ability seems pretty good. I would love to try this in another deck as well. Opponent with yet another borrowed time to get rid of Tezzeret.
Your victory doesn't change my future.
Put down the green-blue land. Get down Esika's Chariot and the Hotshot Mechanic. Setting ourselves up to start attacking next turn. Jukai Naturalist, one of the most important cards for the opponent's style of deck. And some more removal. Touch the Spirit Realm. Having faced a few of these decks before, they run a very large amount of targeted exilable removal like that. Can be annoying, but that does make them vulnerable to us removing those enchantments at the end of the turn and getting the thing back and being able to surprise them a little bit, seemingly out of nowhere. Attacking for 4 here with the cats, and we'll see what comes next. Hallowed Haunting. This, especially with some runes, but in this style of deck, can really gum up the ground fairly quickly. So we decide to go ahead and exile the Hallowed Haunting here. Opponent draws a card off the Spirited Companion. All right, almost forgot to Thirst for Knowledge there. We opt to discard the extra lands in favor of keeping the Surgehacker Mech, which will help us pick off the Jukai Naturalist since we can't target it with Vanishing Verse, since it is 2 colors. All right, that's a quick 2 damage over there. We are still able to hold up the Vanishing Verse just in case. And we'll go ahead and get in with the cats just to keep things moving along. Opponent plays the white pathway land. Yet another borrowed time. 3 of a kind from the opponent's hand. They decide to remove the Surgehacker Mech, which is fine. We keep getting stops because it's asking us if we want to crew it up in advance. We do not. They play a Michiko's Reign of Truth and target one of the doggos. That is a big doggo, and they are attacking for 8. Going to block with the Hotshot Mechanic. Seeing the Reign of Truth over there, it reminds me that these decks can put up big creatures out of nowhere and close out the game fairly quickly. So we decide to conserve the life total, and then again, end of turn, we're gonna hit the enchantment with the Vanishing Verse, get our Chariot back, and the opponent decides they've had enough. Okay, on to the next game. Another similar opening hand here. We're a little bit light on lands, but the Faithful Mending means that we could probably draw into what we need. We're going to lean off with the blue and white land on our side. Opponent leading off with an eye twitch, so this could be black and white, or it could just be straight black control. We've got our mechanic down. We've got 2 mechanics. We could try to bait out some removal from them early on, since we're not in a big rush to use this mechanic, and we've got 1 in reserve. All right, that was a timely 3rd land. That leaves us open to draw some cards at the end of our opponent's next turn, and hopefully start some things going with Greasefang or Bankbuster to draw into some more cards. We've also got Tezzeret that we could play if the opponent's board presence is light and draw a few more cards, hopefully dodging some removal over there. So right now this is looking like mono black. Hagra Mauling onto our mechanic. Okay, nothing too threatening from the opponent's side, so we're going to draw at the end of their turn. I'm going to go ahead and discard the Chariot. Kind of have a lot of expensive things in our hand at the moment, and no way to play the Chariot aside from, of course, the Mech Hangar. We're going to draw 2 with Tezzeret here. Discard the Portable Hole. Aside from hitting eye twitches to prevent the Learn mechanic, probably not a lot of targets for us in this matchup. Opponent's going to hit Tezzeret with a Soul Shatter. Luckily we got our cards out of it already. We will play a Bankbuster, play out the Otawara as a land, and then drop the mechanic. Could have foretold the Doomskar over there, but not looking like the opponent is going to swarm the board with creatures anytime soon.
You require my aid? I will cull the weak.
And we will draw with the Bankbuster at the end of their turn. We are going to head and drop Greasefang here. That will allow us to pull up the Chariot that we discarded earlier. And Greasefang should be able to crew up the Chariot, since it also gives the Chariot haste when it pulls it out of the graveyard. Going to try to get rid of this Lulth, keep the opponent from drawing some cards. And we are pretty much demanding a board wipe from the opponent here with this board state. Nice side effect of Greasefang is it does return the vehicle to your hand at the end of the turn. Dodges a little bit of removal there. Lets us keep a little something back in reserve should we need it. Alright, opponent looking like they might not have the Meat Hook Massacre or the Blood on the Snow at the moment. They're doing some things, drawing some cards. Eye Twitch and a draw from Lulth.
Go, my children!
Thinking about drawing and discarding here, since we know we have the Greasefang. Pondering what removal here to get rid of. Going to decide to keep the Portable Hole for the Eye Twitch. Another Doomskar is our draw. So here's where some of the sequences can get tricky. So we're going to go ahead and Portable Hole the Eye Twitch, play out the Chariot, get a couple more cat tokens. We're going to crew up the Bankbuster using 2 of the cats that can't attack. Greasefang is going to pull out the Surgehacker Mech. We have plenty of vehicles on the board, so that is going to be enough damage to take out the
A gift.
1/4 creature that I'm forgetting the name of. And we are going to go mostly for the face and have Greasefang take out the Lulth. Fully expecting we're going to get hit by a Meat Hook Massacre or something here. The opponent's drawn a lot of cards, and we have extended a lot into the board. Alright, so Blood on the Snow. Only 4 snow lands, so they are only able to bring back the Merchant. And they're going to hunt for specimens, get a Confront the Past out of the board to bring back a Planeswalker, most likely. We're thinking about what to do here. We've got the second Mech Hangar. Now, Valorous Stance is able to hit the Merchant, should we need it to. And we are going to go ahead and do that just to prevent the opponent from drawing more cards. It's sort of felt this whole game like they have been just a step behind, so we want to make sure that they stay in that position. They will use that Confront the Past that they got off the Eye Twitch to bring back Lolth. Create a couple of spiders as some blockers, and a Shambling Ghast as well. So the ground has been officially gummed up. We are going to play out the Surgehacker Mech and just go straight for the Lolth. That is too many creatures to try and get cute and play around for the moment. It looks like we might have also had the mana there to do the Doomskar first, and then use the Mech Hangar to power up one of our mech creatures. However, if the opponent would have had a Infernal Grasp or any type of removal, they would have been able to keep their Lolth. So, yeah, it could have gone either way. All right, just taking a look at some of our options. Our board is looking pretty nice over here. I'm going to use the Mech Hangar to go ahead and fire up the Surgehacker Mech. Again, a lot of text on these new cards, trying to figure out how these all interact with the Greasefang, but we're going to go ahead and get in with just the Surgehacker. Soul Shatter from the opponent. Looks like we're debating whether or not to hold up the Thirst for Knowledge here or go ahead and lay the Greasefang. I think the Greasefang is more useful in the hand for the surprise value to bring out a Surgehacker Mech from the graveyard if we need it. It might be time for the opponent to start firing up some of those Hive of the Eye Tyrant and removing some things from the graveyard. I think they have figured out the combo from us by now. Opponent with a second Confront the Past in the sideboard. And it is looking like they're going to pull Lolth from the grave yet again.
My children
Create some more spiders.
In the blood of my enemies. My power is for annihilation.
Draw some cards here at the end of their turn with Thirst for Knowledge. Now we could discard an artifact because it is easy to bring back with Greasefang. We go ahead and draw another Chariot anyway. Doesn't matter too much. Pondering some options here. We could do the full price Doomskar, follow that up with a Greasefang, and pull something out of the graveyard if we absolutely need to.
Aren't I generous?
All right, so opponent is at 11. We go to combat and trigger the ability from Greasefang. We target the Surgehacker Mech, some easy damage for the reanimated Lolth. And we will crew. And that is enough from the opponent. Hello again. So that is the 4-color vehicles deck in Standard. We've got some interesting interactions with Greasefang, Surgehacker Mech, and a slew of vehicles. It's a tricky mana base to play, but you've got some really fun interactions with some of these cards. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.